Rise and shine.
What I want people to know about me and hopefully be able to see in themselves is that people are multifaceted. One of my favorite sayings that I say is that people aren't one-dimensional pieces of paper. We're like origami. So there's many different angles and sharp edges and facets, and just a little change in perspective can change what you're seeing. So I like to think of myself and everyone else as origami. You know, there's no one angle you can see me from.
Hi everyone, welcome to the Queer Network. This is Queer Conversations. We have a very special queer conversation today, all about coming out. As you know, we have a coming out series on the Queer Network as well. And we wanted to do a little deeper dive into the coming out story of our special guest, Miss Clawdeena. Welcome to the Queer Network.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Tell us a little bit about Clawdeena.
I grew up in Florida. I currently live in Los Angeles. I'm a beauty guru, LGBTQ and mental health advocate, and full-time fashion doll.
I love it. Full-time fashion doll. That we're gonna get into that.
For sure.
So, how do you identify? You know, we're talking about coming out. That is a big thing. There's a nuance thing, actually, rather. So, how do you identify?
I'm not keen on labels, but I would say that queer encompasses a lot of how I identify in regards to gender, sexuality.
Let's go back to when you knew you were different. What words were you using then?
So when I initially came out, I was 11 years old. I came out as gay at that time. And then around 14, I started doing drag. That's what I considered what I was doing, and I was really involved in the drag scene. And then when I turned about 17, 18, I was like, these terms don't necessarily encompass how I identify. And so then I started getting more involved with the LGBTQ community in general, and I found all these different terms and all these different identities, and I was like, wow, like some of these really resonate with me, some of these really don't, and I feel like queer just encompassed all of it.
This word is such a beautiful umbrella term that we can use for a lot of different things. How were you feeling when you started to realize that you were different, and did you want to celebrate that, or did you want to hide that? Like, what were the feelings you had at that time? You said you came out at 11?
Well, did I say I came out at 11? I realized I was gay at 11.
That's fine. I mean, that's
but
that's part of the journey.
Yeah. So initially, when I was 11 years old, and I realized that I identified as gay at the time, I was really afraid. You know, I grew up in a very religious household. My dad is a pastor. My mom is an ordained minister. So anytime anything LGBTQ oriented came up on the TV, they were sucking their teeth. It was those queers. Like, it was just the environment I was in was not celebrating diversity, essentially. And so I grew up thinking that being gay was wrong. And I started to kind of come around, like going on 12, but I was like, you know, if I'm going to come out as gay, I'm not going to be feminine. Like, I'm not going to be flamboyant. I'm not going to be into like dressing nice or being a designer, like all the stereotypes. And I mean, obviously here we are now, but
we've come a long way.
We have come a long way. So then I was really trying to fit this mold of being like a masculine gay, even at 12 years old. But by 13, I had really just let it go. Obviously, I was collecting dolls. I've been collecting dolls since I'm 7 years old. And I do think that dolls kind of helped me embrace femininity in general, or like societal standard femininity. But I was initially very self-hating and very closed-minded to the concept of femininity or being a part of a stereotype. I think I didn't want to to associate with what I grew up thinking was wrong.
Mm-hmm. What was the journey then for, your parents? Like at 12, you're saying you were starting to accept this, and then by 14, you said you were starting to do drag. So how are your parents reacting to all this as ministers and pastors and a huge part of the church?
So when I initially came out, that was actually 13 is when I came out. And
Mm.
so at that time, I came out to my mom first, and it wasn't on purpose. She actually found a picture of my then first boyfriend and I kissing. And I remember it was on my laptop, and she flipped around my laptop and she said, what is this? And I explained to her, that this was my first boyfriend, which is actually a long story within itself. But and she was skeptical at first, but ultimately, I think that I remember in her mind, like she was just kind of like maybe paralyzed or shocked even. She grew up Catholic, so like very, also again, very against gay people, but I could see her trying to understand. And my dad was like surprisingly so accepting. The first thing he said to me, he was like, "I love you no matter what," and he hugged me. And my dad is super sweet, so he was
Amazing.
just like really, really like, it shocked me. But their journey of accepting queer people and embracing the LGBTQ community has come such a long way. They've completely 360'd, the people who they've gone to church with, or anyone that they come across, they are sure to celebrate the LGBTQ community. They advocate for me and queer people in general. They've had little conversations with some of their friends who are still against gay people, and they are quick to say, you're wrong, and try to explain and really try to be advocates, and push for change in that way. So I am so proud of my parents, and they are in their, well, my dad is 70 and my mom is 65. So they were still, they're an older age at that time. So the fact that they were able to 360, especially at their age, despite decades of what they were taught, really gives me a lot of hope for future generations and our current climate.
Yeah, people can change in this environment, even though it feels very polarizing. When it's personal, all of a sudden the game changes.
Exactly.
Even though religion plays this huge role in people's lives, and then when all of a sudden it's your own child or your own nephew or connected to you closely, yeah, that changes the game. Um,
Yes.
what was the hardest part for you personally about accepting yourself, knowing that you'd been told all these things about it being wrong? And now we're talking like there's multiple things at play. It is your sexuality, but then also accepting yourself as the way you present now.
Yeah. Um, a lot of it. I think the whole journey has been undeniably difficult. I mean, even to this day, I tell people that I don't always know how I identify. It's kind of up in the air sometimes. So there are things like I do know. So things that kind of come easy to me is like I don't identify as a drag queen, because I don't try to present a persona. I also feel like drag is a career, and I am so infatuated with drag culture and drag queens. Like I really admire them. So definitely nothing of like, oh, like I don't want to identify that way.
Right.
But realizing that was difficult. I would say that things like that are hard because of the social ideas of certain things. I think explaining things to people, that can be difficult within itself. It can be exhausting to constantly feel like I'm explaining myself and having to justify my own identity or validate my own identity. Those things are difficult and continue to be difficult.
Hmm. Do you identify with the word like even gender fluid? Because I mean, you came out as gay, but then now in
I would say gender fluid. I do identify with that term as well, because there are times I think I've expressed to you before that I am male presenting, or like again societally norm male presenting. So
right.
gender fluid, I think, is a term I would fall under as well, that still resonates with me.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing because I see you now, and I mean, you're this
Yeah.
beautiful woman. To anybody who's watching that didn't know your story, would just see you
Right.
as this beautiful woman, or they may assume that you were a drag queen. And I think that's what you're
Right.
saying, that you come up against some of these stereotypes that people will
Yeah.
assume things. But it also sounds like where it started was that you also identified with your the sexuality side of it, that you were
Yes.
also gay.
Right.
Hmm.
Yes. So it's like so many layers.
Yes. So, but for you, so then again, back to your parents, what was that journey like to share that all with them? Or did you hide it, or did you always just let them know what was going on as these things were progressing along the way?
So my sister actually played a big role in all of this. When I was 14 and I started doing what then I identified as drag, she put makeup on me. Like she was really into contouring and like the
Mm,
Kardashians, and so I was like showing her. I want to say clips of Adore Delano, and I was like, I really
love
want to
it.
like look at this, and so she did my makeup, and she kind of, I don't want to say she pushed me, but she made a safe environment for me to invite my mom into seeing this look. And it was the first time I had ever done makeup. And again, like my mom was skeptical at first, but now, like again, going through this journey, like she's really educated herself and continues to try
Hmm.
to educate herself on things. But she was skeptical, and my dad was like, I could tell he was uncomfortable in his presence, but he wasn't judgmental, if that makes sense.
Uh-huh.
Like when I was 14, I was going to Walmart as Elsa in a small town. Like I was so naive. I was really thinking like, like I was really like, I am that girl. Like nobody's gonna
Yes.
say anything, it's gonna be fine. And nobody ever did say anything, but still, them driving me all the way to Walmart and them not being naive to the ways of the world, and still walking into Walmart with me proudly, like they weren't acting any type of way. I think that they really embraced me no matter what and really did love me no matter what. And so with everything and the way that I identify, I did continue to tell them as it came along and as it popped into my head. I have a very open communication with my parents, thankfully. Before I came
Mm,
out, I feel like probably not as much because I was so afraid that they would sense it on me or something. They would
yeah.
sense that I'm different. But now and after I came out, like the very first time they found out, we've had very open communication.
Do you think that the coming out as gay first was sort of a nice, not sort of like an icebreaker that allowed for them like to see, oh, I thought something was one way, and now I've accepted that, or I'm on a journey to accepting that, and then seeing the makeup or the way you wanted to present in a more feminine way, was it just a continuation? Not that that's everybody's journey, but that was
Right.
what helped.
Yes, I would say that coming out as gay set the foundation of coming out as everything else, or like kind of
Hmm.
realizing other things with them. And I think that because also there was like there was separation in the years, like 2 years would go by and then I kind of like identify as something else. I mean, granted, I'm only 20 now, so it's not like this was that long ago, but there was enough time, and even I would say media also played a big role in it because we were seeing more queer representation on TV. I
Totally.
remember we watched How to Get Away with Murder. That was like one of my favorite shows, and it came out in 2014 when I
Yep.
started doing makeup, and it was just so normal for there to be gay relationships and gay
Hmm.
characters. And I think that my parents are like huge on TV. There is not a single hour in the day they're not playing it. And I think that seeing that really did help normalize it in their minds.
Absolutely. The power of television. I've always said that. Show people that it's normal, that it can be normal. It can change perspectives. Did you ever wonder, within all the labels that we've adopted in our, even in the last 5 years, and presenting female, but feeling like sexuality wise you were gay, did you ever feel like transgender was a term, a route, like that Did that ever cross your mind? Did it cross your parents'
Yes.
mind? Because that
No,
also is a term we're
definitely.
much more open to talking
Yes, I have thought about the term transgender when I was 17 specifically, and I started breaking into the beauty industry. Um, I really wasn't sure where I felt with my gender identity. And so then it was all in my mind, and it was kind of like being a closeted gay all over again. It was like, oh
about. Right.
wait, like it's not how I identify. And I didn't really open up the conversation until the next year when I was 18. And I started it with my boyfriend, and I said, you know, if I was to choose to transition, would that affect our relationship? And it was
Mm-hmm.
something that we had conversations about and really thought about. And he said no. Like he didn't mind. Like I was still me. My gender presentation did not really affect our relationship whatsoever. And so that really helped me in furthering that conversation with other people. So I
Mm-hmm.
talked to one of my sisters, and I said, I'm kind of thinking about whether or not I identify as trans. And so we had that conversation, and they were also very accepting and open. And I think even now, like it is something that I continue to struggle with. Is like, is that a
Yeah.
path I want to take? Is transitioning? Is transgender the term that I truly identify with? Is that something that I'm still wrestling with?
Beautiful that you allow yourself the time to figure it out, and not even that it's like about figuring it out, it's just like feel it out, like let yourself explore. And I think it's beautiful that we live in a world, that you've been able to feel the acceptance from your parents and the society around you in your wherever
Right.
you are, that you can explore these things, that you can be a gay man who's queer, who
Yeah.
presents both female and male. What is it like to live outside of so many of society's norms?
So one, I would say, firstly, I feel very privileged in that way to have such an accepting and loving environment like that. I
Mm-hmm.
know a lot of people don't have. A lot of my viewers message me that that's not the environment they're in. So I feel like that within itself is outside of society's norms. But um, I think that it's at times difficult, but ultimately very gratifying. I would say to my self-esteem in some ways, because in a way, um, consistently looking back at the past decade of my life, regardless of what it is I identify as or what I'm doing, I do allow myself to explore it and to um, kind of embrace myself for what I am in that moment. And I think that it has been a testament to my strength. So it's been like, you know, with like all things in life, it's been both difficult and fulfilling. But I think that it can also be very a sense, it gives me a sense of community, I think, living outside of a lot of life's norms, because I can also empathize with a lot of other people who don't fit into
Mm-hmm.
life's norms, even outside of just the spectrum of being part of the LGBTQ community. Is my
Yeah.
mom. People who have watched my videos know that my mom has a large birthmark that encompasses half of her body. She also has the deformity due to her Klippel-Trenaunay-Weber syndrome, and
Mm,
that also is something that we can empathize about. Like she doesn't know what it's like to
totally.
be queer, but she does know what it's like to feel like you don't fit into society's norms. So I feel like I can
Yeah.
also empathize with all types of different I guess like we were saying, outside of social norms.
We really believe, at the Queer Network, that we're not here to fit in. We are
Yeah.
here
It is
to,
out.
yeah, we're here to stand out and be proud of all of our differences, and also embrace all of our similarities. Like you said, you can be all the things you are, and your mom is all the things that she is, and yet there are some, intrinsic things that you guys share about how you see the world, or how the world sees you. And that's a
Right.
beautiful thing to share with
Yes, yes, absolutely. It's
her.
definitely
Mhm.
only made our bond stronger.
Yeah. What advice would you give to somebody who is struggling to accept themselves? Like what helped you or what still helps you and you think that people could also be helped by?
So I would say my advice to someone struggling to accept themselves is one, from my own mouth, your feelings are valid. And secondly, I think reminding yourself that your feelings are valid, that
Mm,
anyone in your position and many people, I believe, in that position um, struggle. And it's a very valid thing. It's a very real feeling to feel like I don't accept myself, or I don't know how I identify. All accepting those feelings is not easy. So I think the reality is validating yourself is not easy either, but it, for me, allows me to get out of the bed every morning. Like when I'm
mm-hmm.
feeling depressed, taking little steps is how I'm able to conquer the day. And I think I wouldn't be able to do that if I wasn't telling myself, it's okay to be angry. It's okay to be sad.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay to feel whatever you're feeling. Feelings do come and go. They're not facts. They're feelings, so they're valid and they're real,
100%.
but they're not, they're gonna have flows and ebbs like the rest of life. So I think that my advice again to anybody who is struggling with themselves is really allowing yourself to feel the way you're feeling. Allow yourself to feel scared. It's okay to feel scared. It's okay to feel confused. These are all very natural things to feel.
Now, when you're looking for that validation, how do you give it to yourself? Like, what's an example of a way that you validate yourself? Because I think a lot of people listening at home often feel like, we say these things and then we don't know how to do them. And
Yeah.
part of that is it is partly that you at home are going to have to figure those things out as well for yourself. Go on the journey. But I'm curious to know for Claudina, what are some of the ways that you validate yourself for yourself?
So the ways that I validate myself for myself is one, I feel like I've constantly said to myself recently, like anyone in your position would feel this way. And I genuinely feel that. Like I'm like, I'm sure other people in this position would feel just as whatever the feeling is. Um, and no, I think that the biggest hurdle to come over when it comes to certain feelings is the societal pressure and the judgment on certain feelings. Like whenever someone's sad, we try to better them. Like it's
Right.
better to be happy. And recently, especially within these past few months, with everything going on, I've really thought about what it means to be sad. And I feel like it's not so binary as like, sad is bad and happy is good. So I
Right.
think that reminding myself that, being sad is a part of life. Being angry is a part of life. Being anxious at times is a part of life. And so reminding myself that this is something that I can feed myself without the validation of others. I think I
Mm-hmm.
grew up really craving other people to tell me my feelings are okay, but then I just had this recent epiphany that's like I can tell myself everything's okay, and it's helped. It has genuinely helped. I think that some practices work better for others. I have friends who are able to look in the mirror and they hype themselves up. That doesn't personally work for me. I'll look in the mirror and I'm like, I don't really believe that for myself. So so instead I'll validate myself. And so I'll say, it's okay to feel ugly. It's okay to feel like you don't want to go out today. Those are natural things to feel. And somehow it's just like comforting myself. It's like giving myself a
Yeah.
hug.
I think you really pointed something out that was really brilliant before this, that feelings are not facts. They
Hmm.
are something that ebbs and flows. They are like a thought that comes and goes. And
Yes,
let them feel them while they're there and know that it's not going to be forever and that
right.
you will move on to a new feeling because if we know one thing about living life on this earth, it's that there's constant change. Everything is constantly changing. And so
Yeah,
we're
I mean,
constantly
look where we
adapting.
are now. Like, yes, it's again, I think we talked about this before we started filming is that life is adapting. There is a lot of
Yeah.
adapting in life.
Yeah. What part of living this beautiful life that you live as you do makes you the most proud?
I would say what makes me the most proud is, ooh, that's a really good question. I think the way that I know I've impacted people. Like when people
Mm,
message me and say that I've helped them come out, or I've helped them conquer their own depression, or seek help for their mental health, whatever their issue may be. That really means a lot to me. Also going back to like all the dolls, like there's a lot of people who message me and they're like, I'm 32 and I collect dolls, and watching you really makes me feel like it's okay for me to do this regardless of what anyone says. And so those things are so gratifying to me. I don't want to feel like, I'm someone's hero. I feel like I'm definitely not a hero, but I do think that in helping people, it makes me feel very fulfilled and it makes my life feel meaningful.
Now, for anybody who doesn't know, some of our fans at the Queer Network,
Yes.
explain the dolls a little bit. Like you
Yeah.
collect dolls, but it sounds like this obsession and this has been something from very early on. You were saying 7 years
Yes.
old, you got your first doll.
So I have always been into dolls, like for as long as I can remember. And a lot of it, I think, derives from when I was younger, at least, wanting to find femininity in ways that I didn't realize I could emulate myself. Like I really love dolls' hair, I love the outfits, I love the fashion. And so as I grew up and I started doing makeup and doing those things, I always say that I went from collecting dolls to becoming a doll.
Yes.
There was an in between era where I wasn't opposed to femininity, but I still wasn't able to express myself through myself. And so I had really bad anxiety going to school prior to coming out because I was so afraid that people would find out I was gay. And so when I'd get home, I would spend hours watching tutorials on how to do stop motion and how to create these 1/6 scale sets out of boxes. And I really like dedicated myself into creating kind of like miniature film. And my dolls were the actors. So they allowed me to tell the stories I wanted to tell without actually showing myself. So
Right.
they were kind of like me but not me. Like they were able to tell my story because I would write scripts and they would be about times that I was bullied. They would be about arguments I had with my mom, and it was very cathartic for me to tell these stories and then post them and have this response
Yeah.
because nobody at the time knew this was my story. Now people are going to look back and see, but
Right.
that that I think has really created this bond I have with dolls is the way that I create through them. I continue to take photos of them. I consider dolls like miniature sculptures. Like I know some doll designers. It's like designing human clothes too, like any other uh, design. So this is someone's
Totally.
art form. This is someone's creation. So I look at it as art, and so I photograph them. I continue to animate them privately. I don't really post a lot of my animations now, just because now it's more intimate. But it's one of those things in life that just bring me joy, and it allowed me to express myself.
Mm. And that's enough right there.
Yeah,
It brings you joy. I mean,
yeah.
that joy is something we were talking on another queer conversation about the difference between happiness and joy. Happiness is
Mm,
something we experience with other people. Joy is something that comes from within you, that you
yeah.
generate. And if something generates joy within you, you've won. Just
Yes. Yeah. I've been partnering with some doll companies because my recent videos have been doing so well. So yay for that. A lot of
yay.
them that I've been doing videos on have been working with me and working on collaborations. So one of my good friends is a costume designer, and so they're working on recreating the doll outfits, but in human size. So that's what I'll just be working on. Always filming, always creating.
Oh, I love that.
That's basically it for the next couple weeks is working on costumes and filming.
Amazing. Well, good luck with that. You are going to be
Thank
living your wildest fantasy.
Basically, yes. Yeah, I literally am becoming the doll. So thank
I
you.
mean, like that's your 7-year-old self going to Walmart. Like that's a full circle.
Honestly, yeah, yes, it is very full circle.
Well, thank you so much for being so open and vulnerable with us on the Queer Network, and for all the people that are watching at home, getting to see how you can be multifaceted and be interested in all these different things, and none of them specifically define you as one thing. You're more than all of them. So
For sure.
thank
Thank you for
you.
having me.
Absolutely. We will put Claudeena's information into the description. We'll also hide some cards along the way in this interview, so you can watch some of her videos on her YouTube channel, which is thriving and
Thank
incredibly
you.
successful. So congratulations on that as
Thank
well. That's
you.
huge. That must feel amazing to have built this empire.
No, it is very gratifying, and I'm very grateful for all the privilege that I've had creating this channel. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for watching at home, everybody. This is Queer Conversations. If you've got an idea for a queer conversation, or you want to be on Queer Conversations, just send us an email, queer@thequeernetwork.com, and you might end up on the Queer Network. And remember,
Keep it queer.
yes! All right. Thanks again, everybody. We'll see you soon. Bye.
Bye.